All right, let's get started. Today we're going deep on something really fascinating. Um, Ramadan fasting. You know, when Muslims all over the world don't eat or drink from sunrise to sunset, we're going beyond just the basics here, though. With this comprehensive guide as our roadmap, I'm really curious to uncover what the practice means on a deeper level and what kind of transformation it can bring about.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, isn't it? Ramadan is about so much more than just not eating and drinking. It's tied to this idea with taqwa, which is usually translated as God consciousness or righteousness. But it's actually a lot more complex than that.
I agree, just saying God consciousness doesn't really give me the full picture. It feels a little well abstract.
Exactly. Think of it more like a heightened awareness of your connection with the divine, with Allah. It's about developing a sense of accountability too, both to Allah and to yourself. It's like a journey of self-reflection and spiritual growth.
So it's about aligning your inner compass, you could say, with a higher purpose.
Precisely. And that alignment shows up in different ways during Ramadan, from the act of fasting itself to the focus on prayer, charity, and acts of kindness.
Now, this guide mentions that not everyone has to fast during Ramadan. It seems like there's a real emphasis on compassion and individual circumstances.
Definitely. It's not about following rules blindly, it's about understanding the spirit behind them. So, like children, pregnant, or nursing women, people with chronic illnesses, they don't have to fast.
That makes a lot of sense. But what about someone who's physically ant fast, maybe because of a long-term health condition? Does that mean they miss out on the whole Ramadan experience?
Not at all. There's this beautiful concept called fidya, which basically means that if you're not able to fast, you can feed a person in need for each day that you miss. It's a way for everyone to participate in the spirit of Ramadan in a way that's meaningful for them.
Wow, I really like that. It's about finding a way to connect with the core intention, even if the outward expression is different. So for those who do fast, what does a typical day during Ramadan actually look like?
Okay, so imagine this. Before the sun even rises, you're up for suhoor. The pre-dawn meal, the Prophet Muhammad actually encouraged Muslims to eat suhoor. He said there's a special blessing of it.
So you're starting the day intentionally fueling up for the spiritual journey ahead.
Exactly. And as the day goes on, it's about shifting your focus inward. Yes, you're not eating or drinking, but it's also about resisting other urges, like smoking or engaging in marital relations. It's about channeling that energy into prayer, contemplation, and acts of service.
Sounds like a pretty intense reset button, both physically and spiritually. And then when the sun sets, you break the fast with iftar. It's just me. Or does the word iftar sound incredibly inviting?
It really is a special moment. There's this tradition of breaking the fast with dates and water, just like the Prophet Muhammad did. And there's a really moving supplication, a prayer that people often say before taking that first sip of water. It goes, Allahumma inni laka sumtu wa bika amantu wa alaika tawakkaltu wa aladiska aftartu.
Okay, my Arabic's a little rusty. What's the main idea of that prayer?
It's a powerful expression of gratitude and surrender. You're acknowledging that you fasted for Allah, that your faith rests in Him, and that you break your fast with sustenance provided by Him. It's a moment of deep connection.
It's beautiful. It adds so much depth to what could just seem like a single act of eating.
And that kind of mindfulness is what permeates the entire month of Ramadan. It's about infusing every action with intention and awareness.
We're seeing how this daily rhythm of fasting, this back and forth between suhoor and iftar, creates a heightened sense of awareness. But what kind of lasting impact does that have? What transformations happen beyond just the physical act of not eating?
That's where things get really interesting. This guide goes deeper than the surface and looks at the spiritual and emotional benefits of fasting. And it's pretty powerful. It talks about how this practice can lead to a purification of the soul, a deeper faith, and an increase in that taqwa we keep talking about.
Right, taqwa, it seems to be at the heart of the whole Ramadan experience, but I'm still trying to really understand what it means practically. How does taqwa actually show up in someone's life?
Well, think about it. You're going about your day maybe feeling a bit hungry, and you're really aware that you're doing this for something bigger than yourself. You remember all the people who experience hunger every day, not as a spiritual practice, but as a harsh reality. That awareness can create a deep sense of empathy. It might even inspire you to take action, to help ease their suffering.
So taqwa becomes a motivator for doing good, both within yourself and in the world.
Exactly. It's about matching your actions to your beliefs. And those actions can be anything from resisting a negative impulse to helping someone in need. There's a beautiful hadith, a saying of the Prophet Muhammad that says, whoever fasts Ramadan with faith and seeking reward, his past sins will be forgiven.
Wow, that's really powerful. It's like a spiritual clean slate, a fresh start.
It is. It's a reminder that Ramadan is about constantly improving yourself, striving to be the best version of yourself. And this journey of self-reflection is amplified during a very special night in the last 10 days of Ramadan, Laylatul Qadr, the night of power.
Laylatul Qadr. Okay, this one has always intrigued me. What makes this night so special, so powerful?
Well, it's believed to be the night that the Quran was first revealed to the Prophet Muhammad. It's a night of huge spiritual importance, more blessed than 1,000 months, as the Quran says.
1,000 months, wow. That's pretty incredible. How do Muslims usually observe this night?
It's a time for deep prayer, for seeking forgiveness, and for making heartfelt supplications. There's a common dua, a prayer that's often said during Laylatul Qadr, Allahumma innaka afun tuhibbu afwa fa'fu anni.
I'm noticing a trend here, beautiful prayers that unfortunately I don't understand. Can you explain that one for me?
Sure, it means, "O Allah, you are most forgiving and you love forgiveness, so forgive me." It's a humble request for mercy and acknowledging Allah's infinite compassion.
That's beautiful. It seems like Ramadan really emphasizes this continuous process of asking for forgiveness and aiming for spiritual purification.
It really does, and that purification often shows up in outward acts of generosity and service to others.
Right, we talked about fidya earlier. But it sounds like charity has an even bigger role throughout Ramadan.
Definitely. Ramadan is a time when Muslims are especially encouraged to give both zakat, which is the obligatory charity, and sadaqah, which is voluntary charity.
So it's about going the extra mile, not just fulfilling the basic requirements, but actively looking for ways to give back.
Precisely. And there's one act that's considered incredibly rewarding, providing iftar meals to those who are fasting. Imagine sharing a meal with someone who's been fasting all day. That sense of community, that shared experience of breaking bread together, it's incredibly powerful.
And the Prophet Muhammad actually talked about the reward for feeding someone who's fasting, right? Something about the giver getting the same reward as the one who fasted.
He did. He said, whoever gives food for a fasting person to break his fast, he will have a reward like theirs, without that distracting from their reward in the slightest. It's such a beautiful example of how generosity and compassion are woven into the fabric of Ramadan.
It shows how this practice extends outward, creating a ripple effect of kindness and support in the community. And of course, all this leads up to the joyous celebration of Eid al-Fitr.
Eid, the culmination of this month-long journey. It's a time to celebrate the spiritual achievements, the stronger faith, and the renewed sense of purpose that Ramadan fosters.
For those of us who aren't familiar, what does Eid al-Fitr actually look like? What are the main traditions?
Well, first of all, it's a time for gratitude and reflection. You know, there are special Eid prayers, people dress in their best clothes, and families and friends get together to share delicious meals and exchange gifts.
Sounds like a beautiful mix of joy and gratitude. But even though the fasting is over, the spirit of giving seems to continue, right? There's that concept of zakat al-fitr.
You got it. Zakat al-Fitr is a special charity that's given before the Eid prayer, and it's meant specifically to help those in need so that everyone can take part in the celebration.
It's like one final act of generosity, making sure the spirit of Ramadan lasts beyond the month itself. Wow. This has been a really insightful deep dive. I'm really starting to understand not just how fasting works, but also the deeper meaning and the transformative power of Ramadan. It's clearly so much more than just not eating and drinking.
I'm glad to hear that. It truly is a multifaceted practice that affects every part of a Muslim's life, spiritual, emotional, and social.
Absolutely. So to recap, we've explored how Ramadan is about cultivating taqwa, that heightened awareness of our connection with Allah and our responsibility to live a righteous life. We looked at the daily rituals from suhoor to iftar and the significance of Laylatul Qadr, that incredibly powerful light of power.
And we talked about how the spirit of generosity and compassion is woven throughout the house, leading up to the joyous celebration of Eid al-Fitr, where the act of giving keeps going. It really shows the holistic nature of Islam, how it addresses both the inner and outer dimensions of our lives.
I love that. And, that brings up an interesting thought for me. Even for those who don't personally observe Ramadan, there are so many valuable takeaways from this practice.
I completely agree. There's something universally resonant about the themes of self-discipline, empathy, and connection with something greater than ourselves.
Exactly. Whether it's taking time for introspection, making a conscious effort to practice gratitude, or finding ways to serve others, there are so many ways to bring those principles into our own lives.
I think that's a beautiful takeaway. You know, we can all draw inspiration from the spirit of Ramadan, regardless of our own personal beliefs.
And on that note, we're going to leave you, dear listener, with one final question to think about. What aspects of this practice, like the self-discipline, the empathy, the connection with something bigger than yourself, resonate most with you? And how could you, in your own unique way, bring those elements into your own life, even in small ways?
It is a powerful question to think about. What's really interesting to me is how Ramadan isn't just about personal transformation. You know, it has this amazing social dimension, too.
Oh, that's a great point. I'm curious, what are you thinking about specifically?
Well, we talked about sharing iftar meals, but think about the tarawih prayers. Muslims come together in mosques for these long prayer sessions. It creates a shared experience, this collective energy. It's a strong reminder that faith isn't just a solitary thing, it thrives in community.
That makes a lot of sense. It builds a sense of unity, of shared purpose. I imagine it's incredibly strengthening, especially during a month that requires so much discipline and self-reflection.
Exactly. It gives you a support system, a space to connect and recharge. And then there's the impact on society as a whole. Ramadan often leads to a surge in charitable giving, both within the Muslim community and outside of it. Food banks get more donations. People volunteer to give out meals. There's this overall emphasis on helping those who are less fortunate.
So it's like this ripple effect of generosity spreading from the individual to the community and beyond.
Exactly. It reminds us that our actions have a real impact on the world around us. And Ramadan encourages us to use that impact for good.
It's amazing to think about. It's this beautiful cycle, personal growth leading to social good, which then inspires even more personal growth.
It really is, and it makes me think about how we can all learn from this. No matter what our beliefs or practices are, there's so much wisdom we can take from Ramadan, so much that can enrich our own lives.
I totally agree. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Even if you don't personally observe Ramadan, there are universal lessons to be found in its core principles.
Absolutely, whether it's developing self-discipline, practicing empathy, or connecting with something larger than ourselves. These are values that go beyond any specific religion or culture. They're values that can benefit everyone.
Such a powerful takeaway. And it really gets to the heart of what we try to do here on the deep dive, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. We're all about exploring different perspectives, gaining a deeper understanding of the world around us, and ultimately becoming better versions of ourselves.
Well said. So, to our listeners, as we wrap up this deep dive into Ramadan, we encourage you to take these insights with you. Think about what resonated with you the most and consider how you might integrate those values into your own life, even in small ways.
Remember, even small acts of self-discipline, empathy, and generosity can have a big impact on both your own well-being and the world around you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. It's been a pleasure exploring this with you. Until next time, keep diving deep and stay curious.